but right now I want to kind of talk about the philosophy of why we're doing what we're doing. You know, there's a study out that says 9 out of 10 times a customer leaves the dealership at the end of the day that they are under the impression that they received a safety inspection. Do you think that happens 9 out of 10 times people leave here at the end of the day? Some people go like this, some people's heads go like that, which is what I see all the time. You know, I get managers when we do my management workshops, and I ask them the same question, and I would tell you in most cases the heads go like this. The managers don't think they are. And certain technicians may do a good job, and certain technicians may not do a good job. You know, when I ask technicians often, and a lot of them are flat rate technicians. Is anybody in here work flat rate right now? So we got a couple people. A lot of the flat rate technicians, when I ask them why they don't do multi-point inspections, I usually get one of three answers. The first answer is, I don't get paid to do it. The second answer is, if I do it, the advisor won't even try to sell it or can't sell it. Anybody ever think of that? When you ever think you're wasting your time doing a multi-point inspection when the advisor doesn't do anything with it? And then the third answer is, I just don't have the time to do it. We're so busy, I got to rush through it. Well, one of the things is, you know, in this study that was done by, there's a consumer advocacy group out there. It's called the Consumer Car Care Council. And the Consumer Car Care Council basically says that 9 out of 10 times somebody leaves the dealership at the end of the day that they received a safety inspection. And the same study, they found out that 9 out of 10 times the consumer believes they were told about all of their maintenance needs when they leave the dealership at the end of the day. And in that study, they found out that it actually only happens about 30% of the time. But the customer's under the impression it happens 9 out of 10 times. Does that make sense? So to a certain extent, you know, we have right now, it looks like 3, 5, 7 technicians in here, and you probably all maybe do a multi-point inspection. Well, you haven't done any yet probably, but you all do a multi-point inspection, may do it differently. Some technicians have never been taught how to check ball joints, but ball joints go bad, and some technicians haven't been taught how to do other things, and you know, if you haven't done it, you know, one of the things we find in doing multi-point inspections that some technicians have these gauges in their eyeballs where they can pull the wheel off and look down and measure how many millimeters the brakes are. The only problem is, when technicians do it that way, not everybody's eyeballs are calibrated the same exact way. Because if you've been a service advisor at one point, you've told a customer that their brakes are at 6 millimeters, and then the next time they come in, a different technician looks at those brakes and says they're at 8 millimeters. Well, if that happens all the time in dealerships, and you know, if you're an advisor, are you going to trust the technicians in the future? If you start to get nervous, you know, I go to I drive a Ford, and I go to a Ford dealership in my neighborhood, and every single time I get a multi-point inspection. What's the purpose of the multi-point inspection? Well, it's truly about transparency. And what ends up happening is if I go there every single time, they tell me where my brakes are. So I can see my brakes go from being 10 millimeters when they're brand new to 8 millimeters to 6 millimeters to 4 millimeters to 2 millimeters, and I know I need to get them replaced. And because that's happened every single time, my trust level in the dealership goes up, not down. Does that make sense what I'm saying? The problem is in a lot of dealerships is we don't do it consistently every time. And so when we do it, we don't tell the customer, we don't let them see that progression of wear in their tires and their brakes. Later on, we're going to talk about the guide to the multi-point inspection and what are some of the most important things you should do when you're doing a multi-point inspection. But that's coming later. But right now, I want to talk about why do we need to do it. And it's kind of an important concept for us to kind of embrace. And you know, if you're a customer and you don't hear anything, you don't hear anything, and you don't hear anything, and suddenly you hear you need brakes, you're not going to be a happy camper, because I didn't know. Because when I go to my Ford dealership, and they do it every time, they told me that my tires were getting low. And last October, because they warned me about it, what did I do? I put money aside, and I put money aside, and I put money aside. So when October came, before the first snowfall hits, I went out and got tires at that Ford dealership because I trusted what they were telling me. And that builds my trust level. You have to understand that what we do for a living, you know, a lot of people don't trust us when they walk in the door. Does that surprise you? Why wouldn't they trust us?
Bad experiences.
It might be one.
They always think that we just
Try to upsell things, right? And part of that, when we get through the guide to the MPI, we can explain why that's the case. But there's another really important reason why people don't trust us. One of them is part of what I just talked about. There's kind of two reasons. One of them is we're not transparent with people. We're not letting them see every single time. Imagine if I walk in the door and I got 5,000 miles on my car and you do a multi-point inspection on it. And you say to me, your brakes are all good, everything's green, everything's green, everything's green. 10,000, everything's green. 15, everything's green. 20, everything's green. 25, everything's green. 30, green. 35, everything's green, but your tires are just starting to get into the yellow. Do you think my trust level's gone up? If you do it every time, I'm going to trust you more because I've seen the green. You know, they have the Hunter Quick Check here, right? They don't? I saw one just recently, but what was that?
Yeah, well, 27 point inspection.
But if you do that every single time, my trust level in you goes up. But what ends up happening is service advisors and technicians sometimes don't want to waste the time doing a multi-point inspection of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and we don't say anything, and all of a sudden, at 45,000 miles, I need brake or tires, and I'm angry because no one warned me that it was coming. And that makes me not trust you as much as I should. Another reason people don't trust us is most of the products that we sell them are not tangible. Do you know what that means? You can't